Hi, I'm Father Jim Martin. I am editor-at-large at America Magazine. And here at America, we are celebrating Pope Francis's first year in office. You might remember that when he was elected Pope, there was a big question on everyone's mind, at least we were asked it a lot here at America, which was, how much will Pope Francis's Jesuit background and heritage influence him as Pope? And I think a year into his papacy, we can see that the answer is a lot. Here are a few ways that we can see Pope Francis's Jesuit heritage in action. First, Pope Francis is a master of the spiritual exercises and Ignatian spirituality. You probably know that when he was a Jesuit, Pope Francis was the novice director of the Argentine province of the Society of Jesus. That means that not only does he know the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius Loyola, his classic text, he has also given the spiritual exercises to the novices. In general, a lot of Jesuits say that the novice master is the holiest person in the province and the one best suited to give the spiritual exercises. So here's a man who really knows Ignatian spirituality. Now, how do we see that? Well, we see it a lot in his preaching. In his Easter homily for the first year, he invited us to imagine ourselves running with the women to the tomb. And more recently, in a homily at a parish in Rome, he imagined the listeners, he actually said to them, close your eyes and imagine yourself at the River Jordan and imagine Jesus being baptized. And he said, now close your eyes and talk to Jesus in your prayer. That is very Ignatian. Second, Pope Francis is detached. One of the hallmarks of Jesuit spirituality, also included in the spiritual exercises, is St. Ignatius's dictum that we should be free from any disordered attachments. So any attachments that are not ordered towards God, anything that would prevent us from following God. Basically, we're meant to be free. Pope Francis is a very free person. We saw that from the very beginning of his papacy, when he stepped onto the balcony and broke all sorts of traditions. For example, bowing to the crowd and asking for their blessing. Even something like taking the name of St. Francis as his name, which was never done before. He is free. He is detached. He does not need to do things the way they were always done. Another way to see Pope Francis's Jesuit heritage in action is his emphasis on humility. Now, obviously, humility is an overall Christian virtue, not just a Jesuit virtue. But St. Ignatius Loyola in the spiritual exercises puts a great deal of emphasis on humility. And he talks about 3 degrees of humility. The first degree is the person who would never do anything immoral. The second degree is the person who, when faced with honor or dishonor, is indifferent or free. And the third degree is the person who actively chooses the humbler path because he or she wants to emulate Jesus Christ. We can see that over and over in Francis's papacy. For example, one of the first things he did was to decide to move out of the Grand Apostolic Palace and live in a 2 or 3 room suite in a Vatican guest house, the Casa Santa Marta. He chooses the humbler path. He's trying to be a man of the 3rd degree of humility. Another way to understand Pope Francis as a Jesuit is to remember that he is still a member of a religious order. Now, there are a lot of funny discussions in the media and within Jesuit communities about whether Jorge Mario Bergoglio was still a Jesuit when he was elected Pope, and even some funny commentaries about whether or not he was his own superior now. But Pope Francis has referred to himself as a Jesuit several times. He talks about we Jesuits. Now, how does this affect him? Remember that for most of his life, Jorge Mario Bergoglio lived a life of poverty, chastity, and obedience. Now, all priests make a promise of celibacy at their ordination. And all religious priests, brothers and sisters, and all priests have a promise of obedience to their superior. But not all priests take that vow of poverty. So the Pope is used to living very simply, and I think we see that over and over in the way that he dresses, in the way that he chooses to live. That vow of poverty has deeply influenced Pope Francis's way of life, and I think that his simplicity of life is something that has been deeply attractive to people around the world. Another Jesuit emphasis is his focus on social justice. Pope Francis was formed and was a leader in the Society of Jesus at a time when social justice was at the forefront of Jesuit thought. The mission of the Society of Jesus today is the service of faith, of which the promotion of justice is an absolute requirement. That is one of our general congregations. And you see that in Pope Francis's writings and also his activities. One of the first things he said after being Pope to a group of journalists was, how I want a church that is poor and for the poor. So the Pope is comfortable not only being poor and being with the poor, but also criticizing the structures that keep people poor. Finally, his governance, or as Jesuits might say, his way of proceeding. This is one of the things that has been the least commented upon, and I think the least understood. Most of you know that Pope Francis has relied on a group of 8 cardinals that he picked, not heads of dicasteries or Vatican congregations, but just individual cardinals that he wanted to gather together in what's now called the G8 group of cardinals. And a lot of people found that very odd. Why would he not rely on the heads of the different congregations as his inner circle? For all Jesuits, this was not a surprise. In Jesuit governance, the provincial has a group of what are called consultors, usually about 8 or 10 men that he gathers together to help him make decisions. So essentially, the Pope has gathered together his province consultors. He's replicating, in a way, the Jesuit governance. So I think even in that style of governance, you see Pope Francis's Jesuit background come to play. In all of these different ways, we can see Pope Francis's Jesuit background at work. It's something that makes Jesuits very proud, not too proud. We're not supposed to be too proud, as I just said. And I also think it's a great gift to the Church. For too long, Jesuit spirituality and Ignatian spirituality has been something that I think has been kept in a kind of inner circle. And now with the election of Pope Francis, the whole world is able to appreciate and enjoy the riches of the spirituality of St. Ignatius Loyola. So congratulations to Pope Francis on his first year as Pope. We pray for you at America Magazine, and we pray for all of you who are watching. For America Magazine, this is Father Jim Martin. God bless you.